This is an art collage novel video. I made this series so you guys can experience the story faster. The video will focus on the character's psychology, the images are for illustration purposes only. This time, Hao Miao and the other man's faces finally turned ugly. Although they did not believe that Chen Kaihong would be completely fine under such a soundwave attack, it was certain that he would last longer than them. I hope that Lord Kaihong will drive this ape away. The two of us will do our best to help. Chang Haomiao smiled bitterly. Humph. Chen Kaihong snorted heavily, showing his unhappiness. However, he would not really be calculative at this moment. He only wanted the two of them to put in more effort. Thus, he said coldly, "I'll break this sound wave attack. The two of you, help me from the left and right. If anyone doesn't use their full strength, I'll just turn around and leave." Definitely. The two of them had cold sweat all over their faces, and they didn't dare to overstep their boundaries. Only then did Chen Kaihong circulate his essence force. The golden saber in his hand let out a clang, and his entire body became one with the saber light. He slashed down from the sky, directly splitting the entire sky into two. The frequency of the sound wave was instantly broken, and it became noisy and ear-piercing. Although it was more unpleasant to hear and hurt one's eardrums, it did not have the effect of shaking one's soul and stimulating one's qi and blood. Chang Haomiao and the other Soul Eater were overjoyed. They turned into two rays of light and attacked from the left and right according to Chen Kaihong's instructions. Taking advantage of the vast expanse of soul-devouring flag, the yellow-rank golden soul slave rushed towards the giant ape to devour it. The entire spirited mountain turned cold and dark in an instant. The ape was stunned for a moment and looked at the soul slave with a trace of fear. It was obvious that it was also afraid of this kind of ghostly thing. Chen Kaihong had already dispelled the sound wave. The ape immediately stopped its sound. A ray of light condensed on its fist and smashed towards the soul slave, instantly dispersing the dark sky. Chang Haomiao's mind was shaken, and he spurted out a large mouthful of blood on the spot. He was sent flying along with the soul-devouring banner. The other soul devourer made a hand seal and muttered the incantation. His entire body began to turn demonic as a faint power surrounded his body. An extremely long tail appeared, and his back was covered in scales. His hands formed the shape of a dragon. The moment Chang Haomiao was sent flying, a huge demonic shadow appeared behind the Soul Eater, and its actions were in sync with his. Soul Battle Technique Ghost Weep. A surge of power rushed out from the man's body and turned into the body of a huge demonic beast, which pounced on the ape with a ferocious look. Yun Shao watched quietly in the sea fog, his eyes flashing with a gleam. He had also cultivated soul techniques, but their effects were far inferior to the true techniques of the Soul Devourer race. At this moment, he was constantly pondering and comprehending them. The person who had fused with it was a descendant of a subdragon, or one of the earth dragons, which was also an extremely powerful 9th-rank existence. Roar. The ape opened its mouth wide and roared in anger. Just the might of its voice was enough to disperse the power of manifestation. As it jumped up with its legs, it used its head to push up and disperse the surging power with a loud bang. It seemed to be affected to a certain extent as the hair on its entire body stood up, and it looked like it was about to go berserk. After the attack, the Soul Eater clan member's aura plummeted and he became extremely weak. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth as he shouted with all his might, "Lord Kaihong, why aren't you moving?" Chen Kaihong had originally planned to attack, but after the ape went berserk, the aura on its body became even more overbearing and brutal, causing him to be stunned. He retracted the blade light that was condensed in his hand and said indifferently, "I know when to act, I don't need your command." The ape's aura is extremely chaotic right now, and it's at its peak. We can't fight it head-on with our strength, so why don't we wait for the others? There's only one such mountain in the entire Mist Sea, and the others will soon arrive. It won't be a problem for us to capture the ape. Chang Haomiao and the Soul Devourer were so angry that they almost vomited blood. You should have said so earlier that you wouldn't attack. You've caused us to be injured, and now you're saying that it's not appropriate to attack. I'll fuck your entire family's ancestors. However, the two of them didn't dare to raise any objections. After revealing resentful expressions, they distanced themselves from the ape and quietly stood on the sea of fog to regulate their breathing. The ape did not seem to dare to rush out of the giant mountain. It only stood in the mountain and roared a few times. It slowly quieted down and continued to stare at the fog with an ominous glint in its eyes, as if it was the guardian god of the giant mountain. The whole area fell silent all of a sudden, and only the sound of the waves below could be heard. They were all circulating their qi and regulating their breath. Among them, Chang Haomiao and Yun Xiao were the most seriously injured. After a while, someone finally came and coughed. Cough, 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 what are you guys doing? You didn't move at all, so I thought you were all dead. I was so happy that I wanted to collect your souls, but I found out that you were alive. Martial uncle. Chang Haomiao suddenly came back to his senses and said with joy, Uncle Master is finally here. The other Soul Eater race member also had a look of joy on his face. With the Bu Guangliang around, it would not be a problem for them to take down the ape together. Furthermore, they would not be bullied by Chen Kai-hong. Chen Kai-hong's expression changed slightly, and he laughed awkwardly, Brother Guangliang, you've come at the right time. The two disciples of your sect and I were blocked by the demonic ape and couldn't enter the mountain. Now that Brother Guangliang is here, there's nothing to fear. Not only that, but a skinny figure also appeared from the sea fog. He chuckled and said, How can I do that? My soul slave is still sleeping. I don't have the strength to even truss a chicken. I need Brother Kai-hong to protect me. Humph, you can cross the sea of fog without the strength to tie up a chicken. If you have the strength to tie up a chicken, won't you be able to kill us with a raise of your hand? Luo Yuankai's disdainful voice came from the fog, and then his figure gradually appeared. Chen Kai-hong was overjoyed. Brother Yuankai is here as well. This time, it will be easy to capture this ape. It will be a piece of cake. Luo Yuankai looked around and said, Why don't we wait for everyone else? Although this sea fog is mysterious, it's not dangerous. On the contrary, this giant mountain gives me a feeling that it's not simple. The three monks didn't have any water to drink, and no one was willing to put in more effort, so they continued to wait there. Yun Xiao sighed inwardly in the fog. These people from the 7 major sects were all powerful, and each of them was like a dragon, but once they joined forces, they would be like insects. He continued to adjust his injuries in the fog. After an unknown amount of time, he faintly heard a conversation and came back to his senses. His injuries had recovered by 50 to 60%, and there was basically no big problem. At this moment, almost half of the people had gathered. However, the 3 from the Long family were nowhere to be seen, while only 2 from the Baiming family were present. Chen Kai-hong seemed to have lost his cool, and said, Everyone, do you still want to continue waiting? Heaven knows how big this sea of fog is. Perhaps some people will be teleported tens of thousands of miles away and won't be able to make it back in their lifetime. The key to this sea is that we can't see. It shouldn't be that big. We're not too far away from each other. The rest of them shouldn't be too far away either. I'm afraid they've encountered something we haven't encountered. Chen Kai-hong said, Baiming Tongfang hasn't appeared either. It's best if he dies in this fog sea. I suggest that we chase this ape away and enter the mountains first. If there are still people coming after us, they'll naturally be able to find a way to catch up. When the 2 men from the Baiming Dark Palace heard this, their faces turned ashen with anger, but they did not dare to make a sound. Chen Kai-hong seemed to intentionally or unintentionally glance at them, and they were so frightened that they quickly shut their mouths. Luo Yuankai also nodded in agreement. That's good. We can't wait any longer. It's been more than a month now, and I'm afraid the world will close at any time. Let's hurry. Chen Kai-hong said, That's right. If we work together, we will be able to take care of this ape in less than 1 round. Everyone's aura burst out at once, linking with each other, forming a huge chi field that dispersed, even the fog was dispersed. The ape in the mountain was shocked. Its eyes were filled with horror as it growled in a low voice. It couldn't help but take a step back. Under such an aura, it was also afraid. Humph, weren't you very impressive and awesome just now? Chang Haomiao hated it the most. With a flash of killing intent in his eyes, he opened the soul-devouring banner in his hand and slashed it out like a huge blade. Everyone started to move one after another, all kinds of ultimate moves bombarding down. The ape jumped up in fear and quickly fled into the mountains. It didn't dare to take the attack head-on. A wave of attacks rained down on the mountains, shaking them violently. The ape also fled without a trace. Luo Yuankai looked in the direction that the ape had fled and said, "That ape has been escaping all the way up. The passage to leave this place should be this mountain. Let's go up the mountain and take a look." Everyone finally entered the mountain and felt the water-like spiritual qi. One by one, they flew up along the mountain path, the top of which directly reached the sky, and no one knew how deep it was. After entering the mountain, his divine sense had also recovered. From time to time, he could feel powerful auras moving in the mountain. Some auras seemed to be checking on them, but they were all in peace. No demonic beasts jumped out to cause trouble. "There's a restriction." Luo Yuankai was suddenly startled and hurriedly shouted, causing the entire team to stop. In front of them, there was a flash of light. There was a barrier in front of them, and light was flashing on it. Luo Yuankai shot out a beam of light from his finger, trying to test the waters. The ray of light passed through the restriction without any hindrance. It did not seem to be very powerful. Luo Yuankai frowned. He still seemed worried. He took out a bamboo tube and gently opened the lid. 3 golden beetles immediately flew out and lay motionless on the lid. Luo Yuankai drew a symbol in the air and sent it into one of the beetles. The beetle immediately buzzed and flew up to the light of the restriction. The beetle slammed into the restriction with a pai sound and was directly bounced back. It flew over again, and after a few consecutive hits, it was directly bounced back without exception. Luo Yuankai frowned and said, "As expected, there's a name to it." After a few failed attempts, the beetle flew back under his control and returned to the bamboo tube. "Lord Yuankai, you can come to a conclusion with just one beetle," a warrior could not help but ask. Chen Kai Hong glanced at the man and said, "Brother Yuankai's insect-controlling technique is unparalleled in this world. Those 3 beetles are enough to take your life. If you don't believe me, you can try." The man's face was clearly filled with disbelief, but he didn't dare to say anything in rebuttal and tactfully retreated to the side. One of them said, "It seems like this restriction is specially set up for living beings. Even attacks can be filtered through. It seems like it'll be a little troublesome to pass through." Everyone turned their heads to look at the person who spoke. Chang Haomiao was stunned for a moment before he said, "Li Yunxiao? When did you come?" Yunxiao laughed. "A small figure like me just has a low sense of existence. I can't help it. I'm afraid young Master Yun was already there when we attacked the demonic ape, right?" Chang Haomiao said sarcastically. "Don't think of yourself as a small figure and don't do anything." "I don't like what you're saying, Brother Haomiao," Yunxiao snorted. "If I don't want to help, why should I stand out now? Young Master Yun, do you have a way to pass this?" Luo Yuankai asked. It was only then that everyone remembered that he was an 8th-tier alchemist, and they were overjoyed. Yunxiao looked around a few times, then walked up and gently touched it with his hand. The light of the restrictive spell suddenly lit up and flicked his hand away. He placed his right hand in front of him and began to think. Then, he cast a few hand seals and flicked them on the restriction. A small strange talisman appeared and then disappeared. After that, he cast dozens of spiritual arts in succession. Every time he did so, the restriction would light up and form a strange array. It was as if he was drawing a grand scroll. A moment later, Yunxiao finally stopped and said, "It's almost time. Whoever has extra 9th-tier profound armaments can borrow them to break the formation." Everyone looked at each other. 9th-tier profound armaments were their lifeblood. Some people didn't even have one, so how could they dare to lend it to others at will? "In terms of 9th-tier mystic artifacts, all of us combined might not have as many as you, Li Yunxiao," Chang Haomiao said. "How can you ask us to lend you?" I have a lot, Yun Xiao said. But I don't have any extra. Chen Kaihong seemed to have noticed something and said, Young Master Yun, are you trying to break an array with an array? Yun Xiao nodded and said, that's right. This restrictive spell is really difficult to understand, and we don't have much time to study it. We can only break it with an array. I've already laid out a small inverted array on this restrictive light, and I need a profound artifact as the eye of the array. It is very likely to be destroyed when I break the array. Destroy it? This was something everyone treasured, and it was impossible for them to take it out. To destroy a 9th-tier profound armament, this price was something no one could afford. Chen Kaihong frowned and said, anyone's 9th-tier profound armament is a life-and-death cultivation. How can there be an extra one? Can't an 8th-tier one work? I do have an 8th-grade treasured saber here that I used in the past. Now, I only have some nostalgia for it. If it's useful, I can contribute it. If I have a 9th-tier mystic artifact as the eye of the array, I'm very confident that I can break this restrictive barrier, Yun Xiao said with a frown. But if it's only an 8th-tier mystic artifact, I'm not so sure. Chen Kaihong replied, let's give it a try. Who would take out their own 9th-tier profound armament and destroy it? A golden saber appeared in his hand with a flash of light. His eyes revealed a trace of pity as he handed it over with both hands. Yun Xiao took the saber and gave it a look. Then, he said with a wry smile, and it's mid-tier? Even if it's an 8th tier, shouldn't it at least be a top 8th tier profound armament? It's easy to say. Even I don't have a top 8th tier profound armament. A warrior immediately complained, as if a full man didn't know the hunger of a hungry man. I'm a 3-star martial emperor, but I only have one 8th tier medium grade profound armament. Yun Xiao pondered for a moment, then placed the golden saber in the air and sent a stream of flame over to burn the blade. Then, a pile of materials appeared in his hand. He picked a few and threw them over, then began to cast one alchemy spell after another. Before this, no one understood what he was going to do, but now they all reacted, and their faces were all filled with shock. Yun Xiao was actually going to refine the grade of the golden saber on the spot. Even Chen Kaihong himself was shocked. He could not believe it. In order to improve the level of this golden saber, he had collected a lot of materials and gone to those proud alchemists. After begging for a lot, those alchemists reluctantly agreed. After paying the sky-high alchemy fee, they failed and returned the saber, all the materials and alchemy fees gone down the drain. From then on, he had completely given up on upgrading his golden saber. He had never thought about it until he became a 4-star martial sovereign and became the absolute mainstay of the Red Moon City. Only then was he able to get a level 9 golden saber from the higher-ups. In other words, he had always been using this mid-tier level 8 golden saber before he became a 4-star martial emperor. How could he not be shocked when Yun Xiao had upgraded on the spot with nothing? He was not the only one. All the warriors present had been observing the alchemist's expressions all the way here, and they knew the difficulty of refining profound level weapons. They also knew that it was not an easy task and the failure rate was extremely high. Forging an artifact at such a critical moment? Chang Haomiao could no longer hold back. Young Master Yun, you're joking. A disciple of Baiming Dark Palace snorted and said, this person is used to doing whatever he wants, sooner or later he will cause a great disaster. Bu Guanliang's eyes also revealed a look of shock, but he laughed a few times and said, it seems like he's very confident in his art cultivation. After Chen Kaihong looked at it for a while, his heart trembled, and he said, everyone, please be quiet. It's good to let him try. After all, this is related to everyone's progress. Even if he fails, it doesn't matter. The disciple of Baiming Dark Palace complained, it's not that I don't want him to try, but I'm wasting everyone's precious time. Although the crowd was dissatisfied, since Yun Xiao had already begun, they no longer said anything, so as not to affect the breaking of the seal. Yun Xiao did not say a word from the beginning to the end. With his current strength, it was not difficult for him to upgrade the golden saber to the advanced 8th tier, and as he kept casting magic arts, the aura of the golden saber began to grow stronger. Everyone present was an expert from the 9 heavens. Naturally, they were sensitive enough to sense golden sabers change. They were all shocked. The golden saber was constantly being refined, and its aura had been raised to the high 8th rank. Then, the weapon accumulation began to vibrate, and the speed became faster and faster. The golden saber shone brightly, and it had undergone a completely different transformation from before. It was as if it was brand new. Chen Kai-hong suddenly sucked in a breath of cold air and said in shock, "Advanced just like that?" Yun Xiao's clothes were already soaked, but he kept staring at the blade without blinking and sending incantation gestures into it. "It's already at the high level. I'll try to see if I can refine it directly to the peak of the 8th level. It's a one-time consumable item anyway." The speed of his hands became faster, and soon, he had turned into countless figures, leaving behind afterimages. After the transformation of the weapon accumulation, the aura of the golden saber's saber ray began to rise again. Everyone was completely dumbfounded. It wasn't like they had never seen artifact refining before. It seemed to be an extremely solemn ceremony with a large number of assistants assisting by the side. Furthermore, they had activated array discs or cauldron artifacts. It was like a pilgrimage, and the failure rate was extremely high. Every time they asked for help from alchemists, they would pray, but most of the time, they would be heartbroken. This time, Yun Xiao's artifact refining seemed to be as casual as eating, and they were all mocking him from the side, but the result seemed to be the opposite. "It's almost time," Yun Xiao suddenly said, his eyes very serious. The golden saber was in an extremely unstable state at the moment. Although it had been forcibly raised to the peak of the 8th tier, he had completely stimulated the saber's potential, and it could break at any time. "Go." With a light cry, he cast a spell, and the golden saber instantly flew over. As soon as it touched the restrictive light, it was blocked, but with Yun Xiao's minor reversal formation on it, it was immediately hindered and suspended in the air. Yun Xiao then formed a seal with both hands and pushed it out, hitting the golden saber. An extremely dazzling light bloomed out from the golden saber. Then, all the talismans and arrays he had laid down were activated, releasing endless energy. With the golden saber as the center, the energy started to spin, getting bigger and bigger. The entire sky brightened up in an instant. The terrifying aura emitted from the golden saber spread in all directions, devouring the restrictive light like a flame. Everyone couldn't help but retreat, afraid of being affected. However, the power of the golden saber continued to spread on the restriction and didn't rush out. A moment later, the golden saber broke with a bang and fell down as a piece of scrap metal. "Go." Yun Xiao suddenly said, "Go over there quickly. This restrictive light is too strong and endless. I don't know where the source is. I only burned a big hole now, but I'm afraid it will recover by itself after some time." He was the first to turn into a ray of light and rush through the light of the restriction, landing above it. The rest of the people were also overjoyed and immediately rushed over. Sure enough, after a while, the restriction was restored at a speed visible to the naked eye. At that moment, everyone looked at Yun Xiao with a different look of respect. "Young Master Yun, you are indeed worthy of the title of an 8th-tier alchemist," Chen Kai-hong said. "You are even better than ordinary 8th-tier alchemists. Your future achievements are inestimable." Yun Xiao smiled and said, "I'm flattered. Let's go. It's rare to come to the immortal land. If we don't hurry, we'll be there soon." At this moment, Yun Xiao's status had suddenly risen to the same level as Chen Kai-hong and the others. The others all agreed politely and continued to run toward the top of the mountain under the lead of a few people. There were no more obstacles along the way, and even the aura of demonic beasts no longer existed. Soon, a grand hall was seen at the top of the mountain. It was shining with light and the clouds in the sky were all dazzled. "The power of extreme yang," Luo Yuankai exclaimed. The peak of the mountain was actually the top of the altar. The power of extreme yang hung high above, illuminating the surroundings.